being able to schedule when they go. I mean, this is, in terms of staging, you can send this, you can just tell it to hold, or you can define an off-peak period, which is from 11 o'clock at night to 4 o'clock in the morning, because really you will annoy people. Most of the time they won't be annoyed. In fact, they'll appreciate if you fax the stuff to them. But what they don't want is for you to tie up their fax machine with 22 pages at 11:30 in the morning when they're trying to get something from one of their customers. So you can really control that, which is neat, because you can queue up faxes all day long. You know, oh yeah, I just did this loan proposal for Jim at ABC Company, and I hit send to WinFax, but then I just tell it to send off-peak, so I know it's filling up my outbox in WinFax. There's an outbox, just like in MS Mail. When I get home, I take my laptop with me, I plug it in the wall. When I go to sleep, it just sends all my faxes for me. So it's sending the loan proposal over there, my application there, my checklist for that customer there. So you're doing all this stuff, you know? You're not doing it during the day. Leverage. Oh, now we're going to go over here to a different place. That's my oops, I forgot a few things. Pipeline management. Does everyone have a system right now that you're using to manage your pipeline other than a page in your planner? If you don't, I have some suggestions that I put in here, some things that I used. When I wanted to increase my volume exponentially each time, I had to come up with a system, because I can tell you when you get a lot of balls up in the air, you're going to drop some, and you don't want to meet this person named Floyd. Does anybody know who Floyd is? Right? I know you guys do, because you all know where I met Floyd. Floyd means follow leads or you'll die. And that's this whole idea of reusable data and systems to capture it. Whether it's Roadrunner, and Roadrunner's fine to the extent that you can manage contact information, but you need something that's fairly dynamic. So you want to follow your leads, and you need a system to do it. And so I put the CLO report in here as a suggestion. I can MS mail it to you. You can get it if you're not already using it. Whatever system you have, just use one, and I just have a suggestion. Then I have rate and fee swap. So if you will flip the page with me, and we're behind the pipeline management tab, the very first page is an example of a pipeline, of a BFO. And what it looks like is the idea is to just enter them when they come up on radar. And I would call it chasing blue sky. If you're consistent about how you chase, I'm going to show you a couple of things that over time will come out. You can predict very accurately how much volume you're going to do in a quarter. For instance, on the far left side of this, over here where it says totals, I knew if that number said 20 million, because I was pretty disciplined about how I entered things in chasing, even though they weren't real deals, they weren't on the system. The way I entered them was the same all the time. If it said 20 million, I knew I was going to do 5 million that quarter. Because over time, you get a sense of what your conversion rates are like, and actually there are reports that show your conversion rates, but the wild card is how you enter. When is it blue? When is it chasing? When do you put that on there? And as you add these things, you'll find that you keep a lot of balls in the air. So you do this. Down here in this box, it's got the comp plan built into it, so you don't have to figure out how much you're going to make. It's telling you as soon as you book it. You can model it. And I would print this out at 70%, put it in my planner so that if I was in between calls, I could look at this and go, oh, yeah, I forgot to call this person, and move them over. And we're doing a Roadrunner redesign right now, and so I think you'll see a lot of this. In fact, this is going to be a button in Roadrunner that will jump you over to your pipeline, and you can manage that. Roadrunner is going to do a lot more than it does today, and Grant, I know that we've talked a little bit about that. I think you'll be very pleased. I don't know if they're doing any breakouts showing the Roadrunner redesign, but looks and feels very much like ACT, and one screen, you know, with things like pipeline management, stuff like that. Very good. Second page is basically a distribution that shows you what your pipeline is doing in terms of breakout between commercial and industrial loans, what you expect to fund, and it does all this for you just based upon the basic information that you enter in the pipeline. So this is kind of cool. You know, it just gives you bells and whistles, but you don't have to do anything to do this. The report does it for you. Happy to MS mail it to you. The next one is just an area summary that's a roll-up. Most importantly, because this, to me, is a management report, if you jump to the next page, what this gives, over time, there are reports that are generated that show your conversions. What's your conversion percentage from apps to approvals? What's your conversion rate from approvals to bookings? And over time, based on your activities in your pipeline, this thing is deadly accurate at predicting volume. And it's good for me as an individual when I was producing. If I had this stuff, I could tell what I was going to do. I mean, that's ultimately where I arrived at that $20 million number, because I knew all my conversion rates. So all you have to do is drive that piece of it. That puts it at the front end, too. So that's on the area summary, but, I mean, that's an easy thing for you to do, and, you know, depending upon how you do it, you know, we could have that conversation. And that really underscores the point. I'm glad you asked that, because this is in Excel. And if anything else, like I said, drinking from a fire hose right now, you get a fire hose and there's all this water blowing around your head. But the idea is just learn the tools, and it's up to you how you want to use them. You can add bells and whistles and change them, but the whole idea behind leveraging your laptop is to empower you with the skills to go out and do this stuff. You tell us. You tell the company what tools you need and build a prototype. I mean, that's what I've always done. Okay, this is just a pricing, a swap out sheet. It's an APR model. It does not have all the calculus that management sciences uses for nailing exactly how much rate to trade off for fee, but it gives you a pretty good working guideline for how much is a fee worth in terms of rate and vice versa. So it's just something for you to play with. It's especially good when you're trying to figure out the APR on all the fees on an SBA 504. People freak out at the fees, but it's still a pretty decent APR. What's that? Yeah, it's something that I have, and you'll all get this. I'm going to send it to all the area managers and division managers right after take a break, because I've got all these on an email. I'm just got to go back and take my signature file out of all of them. Otherwise, I'll have all these great big huge expense reports hitting my AU going, wait a second, I didn't approve all these expenses. Communication. This to me is pretty cool, because there's some things that we can do right now that I bet you didn't know we could do. And the first thing is, if you go to that first page in communication, I'm going to ask you to jump back again, so hold this page, but go to that first page. This is in Netscape right now. I set up some groups, which is basically a bulletin board that you can see bank-wide. We manage the largest intranet in the world now. And so in all territories, every single BFO has access to this. And I put an instruction on the first page on how you can update Netscape, because it's not set up correctly right now to use Netscape News. But I gave you the little thing to put in there, and it works. And this is a bulletin board system, and it's seeded with messages from me and one of the propeller heads up in CIG who helped me set this up. But it's yours. It's your news group. And the idea is, hopefully, because we used to do daily emails, and I'm going to opt to go to this, because the idea is, if I'm finding something and I'm having a hard time with it, I'd rather post it to the bulletin board and have some person that's successful in Texas go, what I'm finding out here is I'm trying this. And the same thing. This is working really well out here. Are you guys getting killed by B of A on real estate? Things like that. We have a dialogue, and then someone, if you're finding this, someone could drop in. Maybe Bob Brown looks at it once in a while and can drop in and give you a comment. I mean, for me, it's a way to kind of organically get information shared throughout our group, especially as it relates to the CLOs. And you can text search in here. So if we have this over, say, a year from now, and there was an issue talked about in February, don't sweat it, because you can go in and search for, I don't know, Sanwa or some other bank or some issue, and you can find the message thread. Message thread is geek for a series of messages, and you can follow a thread. In fact, if you see this little angle right there, that's a thread of messages. Would you guys use something like that, you think? I mean, it's set up, and yeah, exactly. If you could jump back to the very first page for me again. So that's a CLO news group on Netscape. It's set up. It's ours to use. We can add news groups if you want something more specialized. Email to customers and prospects. Do you all have your first name dot your last name at wellsfargo.com on your business card? Do you have that? You should, because you're set up. I'm Brad.McCoy at wellsfargo.com. It's on all my business cards every time I give it out. And it's cool for customers, because ultimately where we're going, not only are you going to be faxing, but if you know everyone's email address, you can send a message if you need to. And this is where you can begin to integrate even your personal and business lives, because you can traffic email through Microsoft Mail. Try and keep it clean before you forward it. But these are things, and it beats the heck out of making personal phone calls to New York or waiting to do things, and you can just fire off an email. If you need something off in Netscape, we're going to get to the research part of this. And if you find some really great resource and you know their email address, you can send it to and from Microsoft Mail without ever leaving your desktop. You can also send to America Online, CompuServe, all the different providers, because they use the Internet as a backbone. There is a page in here that gives you directions on how to add Internet addresses to Microsoft Mail. If you are not currently live, you probably need to ask your area manager to just send Dennis, I think Dennis O'Neill, an email, and they just basically flip a switch because you're already set up with Internet access on Microsoft Mail. The last thing as it relates to this communication piece beyond the Internet mail are the WinFax phone books, speaking of phone books. And this is just a snapshot of some of the phone books that I've had. You know, I have a lot of different phone books, and you can store them, and they're just different categories. But this is an example. When you see the little walking person, and these are things, when you go back and learn WinFax, you'll see this.